Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Podcast Demastered. I'm Chelsea and I'm here with Wade as always, and we're back talking about more X-Men.
More X-Men?
Yes, and plenty more down the road as well, but we're in this kick of X-Men right now, continuing the celebration kind of by talking about this Krakoan era, but also because this year is the 60th anniversary of the X-Men. And this time we're talking about the first big crossover event, Ten of Swords. Our last episode, we talked more about like leading up to this and everything, so you guys can go ahead and listen to that. We talked a lot. We had a lot of fun talking. I definitely think we missed a lot of things. I mean, it's just, there's so many stories, so much to cover.
Yeah, there's so much there. Like, we would be at it for 8 hours before, if we needed to cover every character and every story. There's a lot that goes on. But now we're hitting this first event. We can kind of dive into some of the details and the important stuff that mattered for this event specifically.
Yes. So reading this, I will say, I'm kind of glad that I didn't read this when it came out, because I love like not having to wait and just like immediately go into issue after issue. Yeah. But I guess it's also because I also like binging shows as well. So it's also the thing of...
when this was coming out, like there would be like 2 issues of this event kind of like a week, I think it was. And it was just like every week I was like, oh my gosh, like just come on, give me more.
Yeah. But okay, this whole event thing was insane. Like, this is so strange, so out there, but it also fits like so many of the characters involved in this. And you kind of see like some stuff like coming to the surface like before this big crossover event, because you had the stuff with like mainly in Excalibur and stuff, and dealing with like Otherworld and the ongoings there. And then you learn about Saturnine.
For sure.
That woman.
Yeah.
That
like,
woman.
You really need to follow Excalibur, like, in order to really understand what's happening in Ten of Swords. Because that's where, like, the prelude is. That's, like, all of the characters that were in the Excalibur book are, like, the main characters to the event. And a lot of the, just, like, the lore and the details, like, with Otherworld and Saturnine specifically, like, if you don't really know who they are, like, it'll help you catch up. Because, like, I got through this event just fine at the time, but I've since gone back and, like, kind of learned a little bit more. But it definitely helps a lot. Yeah.
And it's, like, she's such a big part of it, but then you also have to, like, understand, which I think, like, this whole, like, Ten of Swords does a good job of explaining a lot of the background you need to know with, like, Apocalypse and, like, his life, like, thousands and thousands of years ago, like, who his wife was and his children and how they play such a huge part in this event.
Yeah, well, and this is a bit of a retcon for him, too, because with this event, you learn that not only has he been on Earth for, like, ever, but he's existed for forever before he came to Earth via a whole different place. Like, he has a millennia of history going back before he ever touched Earth, which is just, that's crazy.
And how specifically, like, his past and everything correlates so much with Krakoa, the islands that all the mutants are now living on, and how Krakoa is only half.
Only half, right.
Yes. And then you find out this very strange thing. Is it like Araco?
Yeah. It's Araco.
Araco. And how that's like the other half of the island. And how that half got like cut in half by like a magical sword and then transported to a portal into another world.
For sure.
With his family and everything.
For sure.
So all of his children, his wife, they were all gone, and he stayed on the other end for reasons.
Well, it's actually because he was the weakest, right? Like Genesis, his wife felt, you were just not strong enough to like
Baba now.
to go do this battle with us, so what you need to do is you stay here and you raise the mutants here so that they're strong enough for when like you can come and save us, basically.
Yeah.
And that was because out of the 2, he was the weaker one. Which is, for being Apocalypse, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something.
His wife, ooh, wow.
Genesis, she's, woo.
Yeah. She's something else. But like this whole event starts with, it's this story, and then I feel like the setup is so confusing because like it's all these big stakes, and then everything that happens is so ridiculous until the ending. And it's just really crazy. So, like, the beginning part, so we've already talked a little bit about Apocalypse and his family, like, living in Morocco. Like, I mean, his family's been kind of thriving and killing and taking over and raising generations.
They've been fighting, like, a war, a singular war the entire time. Like, not even thousands of years, like, for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think they finally win that fight. They finally win that war. And they are like, okay, let's go
get more.
Let's go take over Otherworld.
Yeah.
And then if we take over Otherworld, now we can get to Earth, and we'll take over Earth.
And then definitely we'll get Krakoa back.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have, like, Excalibur, who's been there for a bit, like, in all of their issues, and then really, like, hold up, what? You want Krakoa? No, you can't have Krakoa. You cannot have Earth. And then Saturnine finally decides to be like, oh, let's have a little fun game.
She's like, I could just tell everybody no, but let's play a game. Why not? Let's have some fun.
Yeah, because I have a big goal in mind that I hope will happen, and we'll just play this game on the side. Lady,
she's just being selfish, and she wants
super
somebody.
Somebody to love.
Somebody.
Yeah, a body.
Again, she's the queen of the Omniverse, you know.
Yeah.
Essentially. But no, she wants this one particular person.
Yep.
So she's come up with some stupid, elaborate tournament to, like, not even win him over. Like,
no, it's just
take him.
It's like to kind of appease everybody else that's angry about wanting to take over the world, and she's like, but you know, we're gonna
like, I'll give you a chance, but
yeah,
I'll get something out of this too.
Yeah, you know, that's what she hopes will happen. She's
so they're fighting each other. She puts a stop to it. Now I love what she does, where she, like, freezes time. And she kind of appears on the battleground, because I love how the fact that they're all fighting, and it's not even like there's not a lot of, like, X-Men fighting. It's like it's such a small group that just kind of volunteered to go with Apocalypse. But when they get there, and Apocalypse runs into his children, who are, you know, his original heralds, so death, pestilence, famine, and war, they see him and they're like, oh, Dad, we missed you so much. Have a sword through your belly.
Yeah. Now
and then, of course, the X-Men, they panic because his Apocalypse is absolutely dying.
Yeah.
And so big, huge, bloody fight starts. And, like, way above the battleground, you have Saturnine's just floating castle. And they're just kind of watching. We're like, well, that looks fun. Look at them do their thing. And, like, everybody's screaming and dying and, like, why isn't she helping us? And so, and then Polaris, like, she reaches up and she, you know, if you don't know Polaris is the daughter of Magneto, and she basically shares a power set with him. So she reaches up and she, with her power, she grabs hold of Saturnine's castle and just, like, pulls her closer to the ground. And all the people inside the castle are, like, freaking out, and Saturnine's like, that's hilarious. So she goes and gets involved, and she gives both sides of this fight, like, a prophecy, like, hey, there are 10 swords on each side of this fight. You need to acquire the 10 swords. Come back and see me. We'll have ourselves a little tournament arc, and we'll see who gets to keep Krakoa, essentially. So then the quest starts to find each of these 10 swords on both sides of the playing field.
Yeah. And then, but the other thing is, because the big reveal that we find out about with the mutants is that when Apocalypse, like, got stabbed by his children and he's, like, very much dying, and then they bring him back, and then you find out, like, a couple of the other mutants also got injured, and, like, a rock slide, is that right?
Rock slide,
Yeah, like, completely died in Otherworld.
He just gets chopped in half, poor guy.
Yeah. And so they bring everybody back into, like, the healing garden area, whatever, and are working on Apocalypse. Well, they find out that because of it being Otherworld and stuff, and there's just, like, the multiverse playing into effective things, if you die not, like, on Earth, like, you might come back different.
Yeah, like, they bring Rockslide back, and they find out when they bring him back, his, like, basically, like, his memory backup essentially got corrupted when he died, specifically in Otherworld. because his memory basically became like the combined memory of sorts of every rock slide, like in the Omniverse. So when they brought him back, he was just this, like, he was himself, but he wasn't who he used to be, because he was basically every version in the Omniverse of himself at the same time. So he didn't have memories of his friends. He didn't, like, he knew who he was, like his powers and stuff, but he didn't have memories of Krakoa or anything like that. But he didn't have memories of anything specific. And, you know, his personality's not quite like what everybody else remembers. So it really just destroys who he used to be. So they're like, okay, well, you cannot die in Otherworld. Because we don't know how you'll come back. And that could be devastating.
Yeah. And so that plays a big factor, being like, and then they have this whole thing where they have to have the 10 swords, and people have to go and fight in Otherworld. And they're like, well, crap, some of these people are a really big deal. You find out one of them is Cypher, who... Cypher? Yeah.
Cypher.
Okay, I don't know why I was blinking out. That was like...
It's Doug!
Like, yeah, Doug, I know. I was just really second guessing that for a moment. But yes, like... He's like the translator. He's the voice for Krakoa, and he's one of the people that gets sent out there, and they're like, well, crap, you know, he's such a great fighter, everybody, you know, he's really gonna survive this competition.
Poor Doug. Doug is pretty. That's what he has going for him. You know, he can't do much. His powers are he can talk a lot, and he's terrified because now he has a sword. He gets a sword from his like techno-organic like virusy thing. It's not the techno-organic virus. It's something else. Is it like the Phalanx? Is that what it is?
Yeah, because it's his friend
Warlock,
yeah.
Yeah. So he gets a sword, but then like he's not a sword fighter, and he's hardly a fighter at all.
No.
So then Miss Magic comes in, and she's like, well, I'll quote unquote train you while we hang out and wait for everybody else to show up.
Me.
And she's just like, yeah, because that's how war works.
Yeah. And then he finally realizes, he's like, wait, you've been holding back this whole time. And she's like, well, you've done a good enough job. I think we'll just...
Like, you learned a little bit, so I won't, like, pulverize you before we go into this tournament.
Basically, like, I'll pray for you, because you're not coming back.
Oh, for sure. Everybody's like, well, R.I.P. to Doug. He's not... Which could present a problem if he dies in Otherworld, and they may not have a translator for Krakoa anymore.
Yeah, which is a big problem.
Kind of defeats the purpose of having Krakoa.
Yeah.
So we have Doug. Yes. We have Magic. Because Magic immediately was like, oh, I'm in the prophecy. Here's my sword, but bam.
Yeah, she's like, bam, I already have it. I know what's up. Yep. Let's do this.
So Doug, and we have Magic. The whole event basically revolves around Captain Britain. But... at this point, she does have her brother back.
Yes.
So he gets powers. I forget what he gets powers from. But he becomes Captain Avalon.
Yeah. Because it was a whole thing, like, for Merlin, he had the test. It was either the sword or, like, the amulet. And, like, the amulet was the thing that gave the Captain Britain powers. But then he chose the sword this time.
The Sword of Might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's learning to accept that role and realize that it doesn't have to be this, like, darker role. He's just finding out more who he is. And you see through that. But yes.
Well, I love the little, like, squabbling they have about, like, well, I was Captain Britain, so give me the amulet back. And she's like, no, screw you, man. I actually like this. Yes. And he's like, dude, that's not how this works. And she's just like, literally take it from me. Try it.
Yep. Siblings, for sure.
Twins.
Yes.
So Doug, Magic, Betsy, and Brian, we get this whole thing for Wolverine, literally diving into hell to talk to Murasame so that he can get the Masamune blade. Like, diving into literal hell, into the literal lava pits of hell.
And he's not the only one there looking for a sword.
Oh my gosh, okay. And I love this dude. Like, he's so cool.
He is something, that is so for sure. Cool. Yeah. He's one with the most personality on that side, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. He's like, so Wolverine has his adamantium claws, but this mutant on the Arakan side, he has, like, adamantium skin. But he's also, like, a charmer, you know? He killed
a dangerous
War's
murderer
husband. Yeah. He's awful.
Yeah.
And he can charm anybody out of anything. Like, he can talk his way through anything, and if that doesn't work, which it always works, he can just kill them. So
it's a win-win for him, you know.
Yeah, he used Wolverine to also get to Masamune, and they both got Murasame blades. Life was good for them. He'll come back later. I love, like, the deal he made with Wolverine to, like, get out of hell. Oh my gosh. When it came back later on, I was like, what? Like, that's cool. I mean, hilarious in a bad way, but that's some cool writing.
It was only hilarious because Saturnine was like, okay, that's
I'll
cool.
allow it.
Yeah. That woman, okay.
But that's a different conversation. That's...
Okay, we'll get to that after we name all of our mutants, all our sword peeps.
Wolverine is number 5. Obviously Apocalypse.
Yes.
Because he's, like, the leading captain. Like, he's there for this.
We have an interesting one, which is Storm.
Oh, right. Storm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and, you know, I love that story where she goes to, like, get her sword. I love that.
Yeah,
that was such a good story.
It's so hard, too. It's, like, heartbreaking for her, like, everybody involved in this situation, too. Because there's just so much misunderstanding, but also understanding. Because her whole thing is, like, which was interesting because it plays into where she has to go get a sword, but it's not her sword to take. It's in Wakanda.
Yeah. She's taking, like, the most ancient blade of Wakanda used by the founder of Wakanda, the guy who, like, found vibranium and, like, learned how to use its properties and mine it and stuff, like the original king. It was his sword, and she goes in, you know, because, you know, in the comics, her and Black Panther used to be married. Civil War. Was it Civil War?
I thought
that kind of put it into that.
I thought it was with the Phoenix Force or something. I don't know. I can't remember the specifics.
It's been a while.
They've been through a lot of things.
Well, because their relationship is romantic, but also very political, and you know, they both are very strong-willed individuals, and they got to do what's best for
and they respect
everybody
each
around
other
them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, nothing gets in the way of it's not. Nothing's personal if it doesn't need to be. Yeah. But, you know, she goes in and she goes, I request a sword. And the Queen and Shuri are like, you tell us what you need and it's yours. Like,
yeah, we're like,
if we got to make you something, we'll make you something. And she's like, well, I need a specific sword. And they're still like, name it. Like, anything in our vaults is yours. And then she's like, okay, well, I need this specific one. And they're like, get out. Without T'Challa being here, we can't say yes to that because you understand the gravity. So she's got to steal it.
Yeah. Well, and the Queen also is kind of like, I would kind of give it to you. Everybody would hate me, but also I'm not the one in charge. So
for sure, have to wait it has to come from the king.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm on a time, like,
I got a time limit going on here.
Yeah. So then she steals it and then has to fight Wakanda, Shuri, T'Challa, and it just, they had like that civil relationship, the respect for each other, and then that just kind of unfortunately ruined it for the time being because it just...
Yeah, it was rough.
And I'm just like, really? We had to put Storm in this position? Like, that is so sucky for her to get that sword.
It is sucky. It is sucky. But she does make it back. She's got her sword. She's ready to go. So we've got 7. Cable.
Yes.
Cable with his like
his
cool
new
sword.
Fun sword, yeah.
I know his like energy sword thing. Yeah, he's just like, this is cool. You can kill people. Why not? Let's do it. But that sword will come in handy later too.
Yes.
And then the final person is Gorgon, who I think he used to be a villain of sorts.
Yeah, I had to read
like
up
his
on
mutant
him.
power is like, I know he hasn't been around for such a long time. His mutant power is basically like Medusa. He can look at you and you turn to stone. But he's also super freaking cool. But he actually comes with 2 swords.
And he has lots of experience.
Oh, he's like a war on feet. Like, he's ready to go. He didn't get any kind of pre-story. He just showed up to the party with 2 swords. And he's like, I'm ready. So there's only 9 combatants, but there's Gorgon with 2 swords. Which is funny, because I think at the beginning he's just like, oh, so I need to go get those 2. And he's like, peace out, y'all. And then he comes back later and he's like, I'm ready. Like with 2.
We're like,
ready to go.
Oh, we don't get to follow you at all? Like, who are you, bro? You just came out of nowhere.
Just popped in, popped out.
Yeah, which I was surprised, but it all fits into Saturnine's thing about the way she words, things, her trickiness, but I was expecting one other person to show up in this group, and they did not.
Oh, okay. Who did you think?
I thought Professor X was eventually going to come into play because he had his sword that Magneto made for him, and that
the
sword,
Cerebro sword?
Yeah, the one that was stolen.
That was a very crazy, like, popular thing at that, like, when there was like, oh, the 10 swords, who's going to be wielding what sword? And like in X-Force, you have the Cerebro sword, which Magneto made for Professor X after he was like assassinated at the very, very beginning. He took that ruined Cerebro helmet and formed it into a sword. Said, "Here you go, protect yourself, dude."
Yeah, and then that sword got stolen, and so I thought we were going to have this whole adventure.
Yeah, no, and people were just like, "Oh, okay," like an event about swords, and that sword has nothing to do with it. Okay, all right then.
Yeah,
continue on, I suppose. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's how I felt too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this was totally setting up a thing where we were going to see, like, Xavier have to actually, like, learn how to fight, like, combat and stuff, and I thought he was going to go get the sword, but nope, okay. I'm sure it should probably pop up later, but I haven't gotten to that yet, so we're just talking.
I guess you'll keep on going. We can talk about that at a later date, I guess.
But yes, for listeners, does not appear in Ten of
Not
Swords.
a thing.
Nope, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, he probably would have been too much of a bother for Saturnine anyway. Let's be real here. Because, she had her goal in mind. Which we'll talk about really what this whole thing was about. She wanted Brian.
Yeah, she wants Brian Braddock, and, like, that's it. That's it. She wanted him to be in love with her, and then everybody else can continue on. Not a big problem to her.
And that she absolutely freaking hates Betsy because Betsy is now Captain Britain, and she's just like, can you just
specifically,
like, give that up?
she's a woman and a mutant.
Yeah.
But
she's not her
people
Brian.
Of like,
also, yeah.
And she's not her Brian. That's for sure. Like, mutants are not popular in Otherworld because, like, in like Arthurian times, they were basically like witches. Mm-hmm. They were hunted like witches. They were actually called witch breed, and so she's very like, not in my omniverse.
Magic is better. And then,
yeah, right. Like, my magic is so much more powerful. Yeah. Even though, like, tons of mutants, like, use magic, but okay, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, mutants, ew, magic's cool. Brian needs to be my Captain Britain, not his sister, ew. Like,
I can't do nothing with that. Like, gross. Yeah. I don't swing that way.
Yeah, Saturnine apparently does not. She only has eyes for Brian, and it's just kind of like, come on with me this way. I want to give you some special presents, give you a sword, because that plays the whole thing. And then he's like, sorry,
he like steals it from her.
Yeah,
he totally. He's about to like. She like makes him the sword and like new costume, and he's like, "Oh, come here, I love you so much." And she's like, "Oh, Brian, take me." And they're like about to kiss, and he basically like throws her on the ground, and he's like, "Betsy, move!" And they like run out, jump out the window together, and she's just like, "What is happening?"
She's like, "Betsy, it's her fault. I'm going."
Yeah, because that's all Betsy's fault.
It's all Betsy's fault, and she's just like, "Brian could do no wrong. Just please." Yeah. And he's like, "Nah, we're past that. I'm married. I have a kid. Like, I'm faithful to my wife. Like, I'm not one of those people."
Straight up. Has a wife and child. Saturn, I don't care.
Yeah.
Home wrecker.
Yeah, she's like, we can fix that. So just,
And also, like, she's the freaking queen of the Omniverse, okay? There's gonna be an infinite number of Brians. She can go steal one of them from their beds, okay? Like,
No. She wants the one true Brian.
The one true Brian.
Yes.
Oh my god.
But, yeah, literally the whole entire time, like, she's just messing with everybody, and then every once in a while, she's kind of like, "Hey, Brian, how's it going?
How you doing?
You want me to help you?
And he's like,
I can end all of this if you come live with me forever, and we are together.
That's all you gotta do."
And he's like, yeah. Which that plays into a fact with Wolverine just getting outraged by the whole thing and being like,
"Oh my gosh, he's like, legitimately, go take one for the team. Go like hang out with your special lady friend. I would do it. Tell me to do it. I'll do it right now." And Brian's just like, "Ew, dude."
He's and like, "I have just standards. I'm married."
And Wolverine's like, "Yeah, I don't. Let's go. Like, I don't need to go fight people in this stupid tournament. Like, go give her what she
he's
wants.
Like, I've been married tons of times before. It's not a problem. I'm like, oh my god.
It's like, well, okay, but Wolverine in this whole thing is just the grouchiest of grouches, which is on brand, but like he is especially ticked this whole event.
And
like
kind of
I love
really
how
annoying.
Oh my gosh. Like they start the event and everybody shows up and like, let's fight. We're gonna do this. Let's just get this on. Yeah. And Saturnine's like, no. Let's eat dinner. Have a nice night of sleep. So she prepares this like crazy feast for them, but like every like new course she serves, like something awful dramatic happens. Like at one point,
it's such like a soap opera.
Like, was it Doug? Doug gets poisoned.
Yeah, because Wolverine was supposed to eat it, and he's like,
Wolverine was supposed to eat something, and Doug ate it, and then he almost dies. But one of the Arakan mutants brings him back. Thank God for that.
Yeah. And all the other Arakans, they're like, what? Like, no,
like,
about
why would
Doug.
You do that?
Yeah, they're like, we could have just had one less person there. You didn't have to save him. He's like, I have a code, people. I have standards.
For real. Standards. Everybody's got standards. Wolverine don't, so.
No. And then Wolverine's like, nah, let's just end this thing. Let's kill Saturnine.
He straight up goes up to Saturnine and just stabs her with her claws. And then she's like, okay. And she gives him that, like, hellish nightmare of what would happen if she actually died, which would basically like be the destruction of Earth and him being tortured for all of eternity by the Arakan mutants and like all this other terrible stuff.
Yeah, no, but that was such like a cliffhanger thing, which is I was glad I was able to read the next one because he stabs her and then like that's the end of the issue. Mm-hmm. And then it goes to the next one and was like, and it talks about like, well, after this happened, all of this, and then I'm like, that's a lot of story that just happened very fast. That's
like
very
we're
confusing.
skipping,
like,
we're moving fast.
I was like, is this the next issue? And then it was her being like, that's what you would do if you would mess with me, so don't do that again.
Like, thank God you didn't actually kill me, huh?
Yeah. And she's like, ha ha ha.
But
hey, Brian.
Yeah. Like she's so worked up this whole thing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about this event is that they introduce well, you get the introduction of lots of Arakan mutants. My favorite though, they introduce Iska, the Unbeaten. Iska is a major character in this, like not only in this event, but like in Arakan history, because Iska she's Apocalypse's sister-in-law. She's Genesis's sister, and her mutant gift is that she can't lose. Mm-hmm. Now she became very infamous in Arakan history because in the middle of this war that the Arakan mutants were forced to fight with these demons, there was one day that she just up and walked out and she went to join the demon's side because her powers told her that like this fight is unwinnable. On this side, you have to go and fight for the other side. And so she did. Like, she doesn't have control over it. She has to fight for those who will win. Mm-hmm. Because it's not that she's just so good at everything she can't lose. She just literally can't lose. Or that she has to win. No, it's that she can't lose.
Which they all want to win, so yeah. Of
course, right? And then they're all like... and during this little feast, yeah. But then she came back. They beat the demons. She came back. Or I guess she came back before they beat the demons. And here she is now. Well, at the beginning of this event, is it Cable and Magic are like chasing Iska around like two little puppies? Because they're like, oh, apparently her power is to do this. And they're just like, okay, but what does that mean? Like, they don't want to get a tactical advantage over her. They're just so enamored. They're like, that is the coolest thing. So they're doing stupid things like dropping a cup. She always catches it without dropping a drop of liquid, and then Magic drops like 4 cups at the same time, and she gets them all. And then Iska's like, if you wanted to know how my power works, you can just ask. You don't have to trick me into using it. And they're just like, they look at each other and they're like, let's do it. Yeah, yeah. So basically, it's just like. They just go after her all the time, like doing this. Can you do this? How about this? And she just keeps showing them all of these like stupid ways that her powers will always like kick in. And they're just like in love. They're like, this is the coolest thing ever. But Iska will continue to be a player moving forward, in really interesting ways too. She's such a cool character. Did you have a favorite, like, Iraqi mutant?
I don't know if I really had a favorite one. I think a lot of them were pretty interesting, and it was really interesting to learn about them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are pretty crazy. Like, we get into Doug gets married.
Oh my god.
which well, we'll save that for a minute, I think.
Yes. Yes.
We'll hold out for a minute. But no, I just was remembering part because the whole dinner thing was a disaster. And at one point, then, like, everybody starts fighting, and then you just have at the table Apocalypse across from his wife.
Oh, Apocalypse and Genesis are just staring at each other, like having dinner, staring at each other.
Yeah, and then there's a moment where he goes, I see you did well with the children.
She says, I did my best.
Yep. It's so great.
Oh, she's so snarky. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's a lot more than snarky, but...
But for real. But I mean, she's literally like, well, I was left all alone. Like, nobody else was helping raising these children. Like, I cared for everybody. Like, later on, she's like,
right.
She's like, I was fighting and taking care of children. What were you doing?
What were you doing?
Yeah. But so anyway, so like the dinner, because we'll get back to Doug in just a couple minutes, but we have to talk about, so the dinner goes how a dinner goes in that situation. Just chaos, but...
Oh, and they serve unicorn.
That was so strange.
They serve, like, the main course, they serve unicorn.
And Wolverine is just eating that up. He's like...
Yeah, he's like, that sounds good, let's do it. But there's so many people who are absolutely, like, appalled. Like, I can't eat that. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. Oh my
They're
gosh.
like, because a lot of people are like, isn't that like bad luck to like eat a unicorn? And Wolverine's like, it's really tasty, so I'm gonna just keep eating the food.
And then Saturnine's like, okay, everybody, time to go to bed, get some
time
rest,
for bed.
Be ready to kill each other in the morning. It's gonna be so much fun. And so, because she gets to choose how all these fights start. And let me tell you, this whole event is not how I think most people think it would go down. Except for the very first fight.
Except for the very first, well, that was a whole thing too.
Yes.
Like, I always imagine like tournament style, like Dragon Ball, two people come in and, knock out or knock each other out of the stage, whatever. No, not at all.
Each issue is just just staring at each other opponents, just page after page, just some long anime fight. No, this is not it.
No, this is because it's Saturnine, and she, like, the method of fighting is different every single time. And, like, the target goal is different every single time. Everything is different. But the thing is, from fight to fight to fight to fight to fight, Saturnine always makes the rules in favor of Araco.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not even like, well, this gives them an edge. Like, just flat out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, Arakans won because I said this, and technically they did that, and you didn't.
Like, they got 4 points this time. Well, she does that later. That's for Krakoa,
she is so, like, so biased. Because if Arakans win, it's easier for her to take Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it makes you so, like, you're reading, and like, and this is reflected in the story too. Like, all of the Krakoan mutants are like pissed.
Yeah.
And you get mad too. Like, you're reading, like, that is messed up.
Yeah. That first fight, I was furious. And I'm like,
oh my gosh,
of course it would go down that way.
So we had
how dare you?
Iska versus Betsy, the unbeatable mutant, versus the person that Saturnine hates above all else.
The most, yes.
And was it like one sword strike? Like, their swords came into contact once, and then Betsy shattered like a mirror. Like, just gone. And
just, like, on the ground in pieces. And Saturnine's like, well, guess we're done with that. Araco 1, Krakoa 0.
Point for Araco.
Like, let's clean up this mess.
And everybody's just, like, jaws up on the ground. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. And Brian is like, what the freaking heck did you do to my sister? Bring her back, you fool. Like, I thought you wanted me. Like,
yeah, serious. Like, this is not the way to do that.
Yeah. And so, like, they literally clean up Betsy. And then, she's gone.
Sweep her up into a dustbin, throw it away.
Yeah. Well, Not quite.
Well, of course, not quite, because comic
Not
books.
quite. Yes.
But that's later.
Yeah.
And then we have the second fight, which is Cypher versus Bay the Blood Moon. Mm-hmm. Which I thought it was funny that her name was Bay.
Bay. Yeah, I was just reflecting more on that, and I was like, oh my gosh. And Cypher's like, I'm not ready to die yet, basically being like, help me. Because then Magic comes and she's like, why are you like putting on different clothes? Because he gets taken away to a different area. And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, well, this is kind of a weird way for you to die, but have fun with that. And then they're like, oh crap, he's going to a wedding. He's getting married to Bay.
Oh, yeah, the fight was trial by wedding. In which case they were to be wed, and there was a ceremony and everything, and
yeah.
But the interesting thing is Bay's power,
yes,
is she's like Black Bolt, where her voice, she can talk, and her voice, they do the same thing basically, but also like she doesn't speak in a language.
Yeah.
It's she does not
thinks she's
speak
speaking in something. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, like when she's talks, she thinks she's talking, but people can't, they don't understand her. But also she doesn't talk all that much because she might kill everybody. Mm-hmm. So Cypher, they have to give each other like vows. And like while she's giving her vows, Cypher's like listening. And, Cypher's power is to understand every language, regardless of.
It could be body language. It could be anything, any other alien language. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Cypher's just staring at her, just mesmerized this whole time because he cannot understand her. Mm-hmm. And he just thinks that's the coolest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
So he's like, just kind of like, yeah, he's in love with her because he's like, we can figure out this weird, like, non-language you have. But she looks down at him because she's like 8 feet tall. And she looks down at him and she's basically like, I love you. You are mine. And if anything ever happens to you, I'll kill everybody. Like, I will cut this world in half if anybody ever touches you. She's like immediately just claims him. And he's like, that's really cool.
Yeah. He's like, okay.
He's like, that was easy. So they
wasn't expecting this, but cool. Yeah. Yeah,
right. Cypher gets to leave with a wife. How neat is that? Yeah. But they both get a point for that because they both got married. So they both win.
They both passed the test.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. The third test, we have Magic fighting versus an Arakan mutant called Pog, who's like a giant like alligator dude, kind of. Mm-hmm. But he has like 4 arms, I think, and like 4 swords. But to her, she's, it's magic. She's rabid. She's like, yes, like this is going to be amazing. But then Saturnine's like, LOL, actually, you don't get to use your swords. It's a contest. I said it's a contest of arms and not swords, so you don't get to fight like that. So Magic has to not use her swords, which normally she doesn't care because she'll like scratch anybody's eyes out. But Pog is also like 15 feet tall and a giant 4-armed alligator. But she does win the fight.
Well, not the first one. The first one, it's an arm wrestling tournament.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, crud. Oh, and that he like decimates her. She's like 3, 2, 1, go. Kabam.
The yeah.
Yeah, just destroys everything. Yeah. And Magic's just sitting there just like, I'll kill you.
This was dumb. She's like, this was so stupid. This is not what I was prepared for. Thought we were fighting with our swords.
Yeah.
Well, then it goes crazy for them being like, the swords become irrelevant pretty much like after that point, it feels like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, now we're going down the looking glass now. Like, things are messed up. The fourth fight is actually, it's Storm versus Wolverine.
Yes.
Because, well, Saturnine never said you only had to fight,
the other.
But their contest is a drinking contest, essentially. Mm-hmm. And they're given some like crazy otherworld liquor to drink.
Really causes consequences later.
Yeah. They sit down and they're like, that's the rules. That's it. We're like the 2 mutants that can drink like forever. And also like, we've known each other forever. Like, we're the best of friends. Let's do this. And they just start drinking and just chatting and having a wonderful time. And like whoever passes out first, I guess, like.
Yeah, they're like, how long do we go?
But Krakoa gets the point regardless. So Krakoa does get the point. But in the very, very next fight, it's so Solemn, who is the guy who Wolverine had to like fight with the swords about, like who went to hell with him. And remember, he called in that favor, or he has that favor that Wolverine owes him for getting him out of hell. Solemn is fighting War, and Solemn and War have some history because Solemn killed War's husband. So War is just absolutely ready to like destroy this man. She's like, we still get the point and I get to kill you? Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And Solemn kind of puts his hand up and he's like, hang tight. I'm actually going to like turn in my favor. Instead, like, I'm going to switch places with Wolverine for this fight. And Saturnine's like, okay, I'll allow it. So Wolverine, who is just absolutely drunk, just flat out wasted, gets thrown into this fight versus War of all people. And I think she like cuts his head off or something. She wins the point, doesn't she? She wins the round. Yeah.
Well, because you find out like he got so drunk, like, and Storm got drunk too, and it like actually like affected them. Like it affected his abilities.
Yeah.
He couldn't. His healing factor
kind of took away their powers a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, more Saturnine silliness. So the Krakoan mutants are especially angry now. If they weren't before, they are now,
and very much losing.
Very much losing. Oh, it's.
And then it gets crazier. The other shenanigans, the other tournament things.
Well, we go back into another magic fight, and she goes back up against Pog or Pog. Because again, all I never said, only people can only fight once.
Yeah, it's whatever I want.
Now they have to fight without their swords, and Magic does pull this one off. She beats him.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. And then in the next one, we have War versus Cable, Captain Avalon, so Brian, and Gorgon. And basically, the goal is to torture each other. And who can, like, survive the longest being tortured? Well, War wins. And does she get 3 points from that?
Probably, yeah.
I like lost people.
I lost track
it's a
of
mess.
all the messy points she just kept whipping out to everybody. Because then there's like some scenes where you're just like looking and you're staring. You're like, wait, this is how they're competing against each other.
Because some of these fights go by like literally in a panel.
Yeah, like there's an
like
eating
you kind
contest.
of see there's an eating contest.
There's a fashion
there's a foot
show.
race. Oh my gosh, the fashion show was amazing. First off,
Storm was killing it, and then Wolverine was behind her, being like, "I hate this.
I hate everything."
Yeah. And then Krakoa I don't think they even got the point for that. And I was like, are you kidding me? Storm was rocking it out there.
There was some other stupid
Saturnine's
like
biased.
wordplay issue. Yeah. Now Krakoa gets a few points, but it's rough though. It's rough.
Well, because it's a big sacrifice, because isn't it with Gorgon?
Oh, at the very, very end, we do get a ton of points then, but I'm checking to see if there's any like other major ones. There's the next Wolverine fight where he fights the Summoner, who is Apocalypse's grandson. And they're basically kind of like thrown into this
like other world
place where they fall. Yeah, they fall from like universe to universe to universe to universe as they're fighting, and they're both similar in that they can just kind of like take a hit and then keep on going, whether they're like healing or what have you. But the fight is to the death. And Wolverine does eventually, when he kills the Summoner, and Saturnine says, the fight was to the death, and I do believe that the Summoner died, so he won. So point to them. But that was a whole problem, because now Wolverine has killed Genesis's grandson and War's son. So War has lost her husband and her son. Yep. So she's a little upset. But then later on, you get Storm fighting Death, which is an amazing fight. They dance
together.
They dance together.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of chemistry between them, and because she understands Death, she's not a stranger to it. She does not fear Death, and Death just finds that absolutely amazing. Just like it's too bad we're in a fight right now because
he's like
we have some
could
chemistry
have a future together. Yeah.
but yeah, he loses that fight. She comes out of it, and she doesn't have her powers during this fight either because of the alcohol that she's being affected by. So it kind of turns into like a knife fight of sort. So she wins. And then, that kind of leads us into the big fight near the end, you have the White Sword versus Gorgon. Now, Gorgon he's a master of war. He can fight any fight with his 2 swords. But the White Sword, he's an interesting one. His sword can summon, basically he can summon 100 other people. Mm-hmm. Like, they're basically like his slaves, kind of, and they're spirits, but they're still people. He can summon 100 of them. But when they die, brings them back to, he can bring them, like, the next day, like, like once the day passes, he can bring them all back. So Gorgon actually fights this fight, and he kills, like, tons of them. Mm-hmm. And Saturnine is like, okay, a point for every one you kill. Mm-hmm. But then so Krakoa finally starts to rack up points, but then Gorgon did get killed. He gets stopped. Because White Sword realizes what's happening. He's like, oh, well, I better go fight you myself then. Otherwise, you're going to get more points. And then the White Sword does win. That was such a good fight, though. Mm-hmm. And then that leads us into the final of Genesis versus Apocalypse.
Which was inevitable, yes.
Which was inevitable. And it is... that's kind of where everything... That's like the finale.
Yes.
You have Genesis. We haven't really talked about this, but Genesis is not really herself in this situation because she has this mask. She has the Annihilation mask, which is like a whole other entity. And that entity kind of grants her power, like extra power, in order to win. That's how she ended up winning the Iraqi versus Demon War, because she got her hands on the Annihilation mask and put thoughts in her head like, oh, we need to go conquer Otherworld. We're going to go take Krakoa back. You know, it kind of like fueled her into doing all of this stuff.
And it gives her control over, I thought it gave her control over like demons or something too.
It does. Because Annihilation was on the side of the demons. Like, I don't know if he was like the head of the demonic army, but he was there. So she basically took over that entire army on top of having her mutant army. Which is like where the problem lies, because now she's just going to sick all of the demons onto Earth, basically. Mm-hmm. So Apocalypse and her are duking it out. He realizes the Annihilation mask is a problem. Mm-hmm. It really escalates from there. I don't remember exactly what causes it, but Annihilation and Apocalypse are fighting, and like everybody gets involved.
Yeah, because... Well, I think it's still like fighting in the background, but he does take the mask, and I think he wants to try to destroy it, but then like the mask like forces itself on him. Yeah,
but then like his will is so strong that he overpowers the mask to some degree.
Yeah, and that he like admits defeat to Saturnine, but yes, everybody does get involved because everybody just starts fighting because like some people just can't not fight.
So we kind of go back to the beginning where it's just an all-out fight of one versus the other. Yeah. One side of the war versus the other. But at that same time, like they're fighting, like, you know, it is what it is. But at the same time, Jean and Scott are back like on Earth, like in the real world, and they had been working with Cable to track down like this space station thing. Like there was like this kind of subplot that was happening where they needed Cable's sword to power this thing, but they didn't know what it was. They were like, there's something is over here, like that is important. And Cable uses his sword to turn on this space station, but the space station was like infested by this like multiversal kind of type of like parasite, like artificial intelligence-y parasite. Mm-hmm. And so what they do, they get together with magic telepathically, and they take the station. I love this. Is like the huge like, oh my god, finale of everything.
Yeah.
Magic opens up a portal into Otherworld, which is not supposed to be a thing that's supposed to be allowed. And through the portal, Jean and Scott bring in the sword station. Mm-hmm. All of it. It's huge. It's a space station. This is not a small little satellite. They bring it in, and through that same portal, like every mutant from Krakoa just piles in because they're like, we're gonna fight the fight too. And it's this huge, like, it's like it's like at the end of Endgame where everybody's coming in through the portals. It's like that moment, but with all the mutants.
Yeah. Which, side note, we forgot to mention the other subplot that kind of helps build up on that. It has to deal with Mr. Sinister.
Oh, the Hellions?
Yes.
The failed mission.
Oh my gosh, so failed. Because Mr. Sinister decides, you know, like while they're like getting all the swords
Why
together
play
and stuff,
fair
and
when you can play dirty?
yeah, let's steal all the swords from like Arako, and then they can't fight.
If
or
they
whatever.
don't have their swords, they can't fight, and therefore will win by default. It'll work out just fine.
And the Quiet Council's like, okay, so sounds like you're leading that group, and he was like, no.
Well,
I have my other people in charge.
so they vote to allow this mission to like be a thing, and Sinister's like, excellent. So he's like, I'll form a team. It'll be awesome. But then like on his team, he has Havoc, who is Scott's brother, but also like they would have to bring like Polaris with them or something like that. And Polaris is Magneto's daughter. And then somebody's like, well, since we're doing this, so you should probably lead the team, right? Was that Exodus, I think, who said that?
Yeah. And then everybody was like, yup, raise of hands, show of hands.
And Sinister's like, wait, I didn't say anything about that. That's not how this is working. And so they go to vote on that again. And like, it was like a 50-50 vote. And Sinister's like, oh, thank God. Like, oh my God. Like, that almost went really bad for me. And then he makes some hateful comment that Polaris is a bad influence on Havoc. And he doesn't want, I don't need those kids hanging out with each other. And Magneto's like, you know what? I changed my vote. And he raises his hand. So Sinister
like,
has to
lead
his team into Otherworld. And remember, the thing with Otherworld is if they die there, which for Sinister, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because he has plans.
Yes. And he fights with one
and
of
also
his
doesn't like to
clones
get his hands dirty, so.
Yeah, no.
They do.
And
he makes a clone. Yeah, he makes a clone to send the clone off in his place. But the clone is like, that's stupid. Like, why do I have to do that? So they end up playing rock, paper,
I need to
scissors.
adjust to life. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I can't just go off and do that. So they play rock, paper, scissors to see who has to go. And the actual Mr. Sinister has to go.
Yeah. And then he loses his cape, and he gets moody about that in Otherworld.
The clone takes the cape.
Yep.
So he can like be the main Mr. Sinister while actual Sinister is gone. So yeah, he's all crabby about that because he doesn't like to be seen without it because he dresses better than that. Okay. Mm-hmm. He thinks people are like judging him the whole time. He's just like, listen, I promise, I look so much better usually.
Yeah. So then with the Hellions, and which is the whole team we talked about in our last episode too. A mess of a team, interesting, with Psylocke at the lead, and them all just going together, and then that story becomes a mess and failed. Like, they get lost.
They got to go through Otherworld to get to like the other universes, and that's a thing, and something with a horse.
Yeah, because Jamie gets involved. It was a horse. It was Saturnine's horse, and like this whole thing.
And Jamie stole it and like gave it to Sinister as a gift. So then they get like arrested for having Saturnine's horse, but they get to where they're going. They do eventually make it out, but then they get stopped by Tarn the Uncaring. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And his messed up. He's like the Arakan Mr. Sinister kind of.
Yeah.
He has like specially created mutants to be like perfect, and he's the geneticist just like Sinister, but like he's better at it.
And when Mr. Sinister meets him, it's like,
he's like, we should be best friends. Like, why do we have to fight about this? And Tarn's just like, who are you again? And he like six. Yeah, he six his team on Sinister's team, and it is not a fight at all. Like, no.
Well, like, a couple of them survive, but then he's like, I see special mutants, I want their DNA. So he sends his little bots and like secretly, and then doesn't he, because I think he also gets injured or something like that. It's a very weird situation. And he like tells Psylocke to take it back, but then he ends up betraying his team and killing everybody else that's left.
It's such a weird, it's really just set up for later. But it is such a weird thing because like he like takes Mr. Sinister and like gets into his head, like takes his brain out to like do something with it, puts it back in his head, so he like sews him back up. It's so weird, and eventually they don't succeed in stealing the other team's sword. Like, they don't get anywhere close to that because they're stopped by Tarn.
Yeah.
So they just kind of, some of them die, some of them get away, or do
only Mr. Sinister survives. he kills the rest of his team, and he was like, they
Oh,
murdered
right.
everybody, and he still came
Yeah.
back with his DNA, and he's like, save me, help me, we can't go there, we need to destroy the portal, nothing can get in because...
That's right. Yeah, they got back
Yeah.
through, right through the portal to Krakoa, and right on the other side of the gate, he just kills everybody else.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want them to, like, remember what had happened. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so then he can really twist his story and really try to, like, manipulate the council, which adds to the end part, which is, like, nobody, like, they wanted to destroy the portal in a way, and, like, but Scott's the one who argues, like, no, we are heroes. We need to save, these are my friends and family, like, we need to go fight, and everybody's kind of like, well, dude, you're, like, on your own, because we already said, like, when you guys die over there, like, you're, like, not coming back. I'm not sending anybody, and he's like, well, I'm going, and Jean goes,
Did
and
all
then they're
go?
able to...
Oh, and Jean leaves the Quiet Council, too. She's like,
Yes.
She's like, I mean, if I go with him, then it doesn't make any sense for me to be in this position of power, especially if I don't come back. So I'll go ahead and resign. And yeah, they go off on their little side adventure.
Well, and Kurt really wanted to, but Jean was like, no, Kurt, I'm sorry,
you
but
stay.
you need to stay there. You're like the voice of reason. Like, we need you here. Like, you have a purpose there. Like, I'm going. But then they get a lot of other mutants to come. So, like, a lot of other people are like, heck yes, we want to save everybody. And that's when we get the cool moment of everybody coming at the end. But yeah, there's those little interesting things that happen in between. You're just like,
And it's all going places too.
Yeah.
Especially with Mr. Sinister.
I'll believe it. He is trouble.
But you know what? It's like he is the worst trouble, but he's so entertaining at the same time. So like we want him to succeed to some degree.
Nope, sorry.
Oh,
he might be funny sometimes. No.
Wait till you see what he does. Wait till you see what he does. We'll get there someday. But anyway, back to our fight. All the mutants arrive. The sword station is there. Through the sword station, they reactivate like those parasite peoples. And sick them on the demons.
They're like, go forth.
Oh yes. And the Arakan mutants are like, excuse me. Like, that's like, not cool.
What's happening? Yeah. And then, goodbye to them.
We basically, Betsy comes back.
Well, no, not quite.
You have to remind me.
So then Saturnine's like, okay, because then she sees she has a basket, and she has a basket of all these like pieces.
These like shards, yeah.
Shards, and she's putting it all together, but she thinks by completing it, she's doing some type of ritual. And I was like, oh, so she saved it. So she actually does care about Betsy. But what she was hoping, what she was creating, was the new Captain Britain, which would be her love.
Yes.
Which would be Brian. But it ended up still being Betsy. And she's like, what the freaking heck? No. But it's just an image, and it calls forth the Captain Britain Corps. So all the other...
The remade Captain Britain Corps,
yes,
yeah.
The remade.
Because she had a bunch of them, like, imprisoned... Because because they weren't like chosen by the amulet. So she didn't think they were like real. Like they're heretics. They were not chosen. They like stole that power.
And like the original one had like been destroyed quite a while back, and so Brian was the only one at the time. But then this whole like ritual or whatever she did restored it, and it was all these like kind of versions per se of Betsy. So they all came back except for Betsy, except for our original Betsy at this time, which is unknown what's happening with that, to be continued. But yeah, then they all come and fight and help Otherworld and our Krakoan peeps and everybody.
And Bay switches sides so that she can stay with Cypher. Well, she tries to like pick Cypher up and run away with him.
She's
and
like,
be like,
bye.
No, we're not fighting. We're married, dude. We're gonna go like live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And he's like, but my friends.
Yeah. Can we like
I gotta
live the
save
other
people.
way? Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
Well, the thing is too is like everybody else can like kind of understand her except for Cypher. So it's also kind of funny.
Cypher.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
And they're like, okay, cool. Thanks for helping us. But yeah, comes to a very messy ending. Because then that's the whole time with like Apocalypse has like the Annihilation mask, but then he like tells Saturday like, I admit defeat, like I yield or whatever. And then he's like, okay. Or Saturnine like, okay, I guess, Krakoa kind of wins or whatever. But to make this thing like a real thing, we need one person from each side to go live with the other side. And they're like, why?
To like make sure that we like stay friendly and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So Apocalypse is like, cool, I'll go live with them so I can like be with my wifey. I'll do that. And then he's like, but like in my place, I'm going to switch place with all of Araco. Because Araco's a mutant.
Yeah. And Saturnine's like,
she's like,
I
that's
accept that.
the thing.
Yeah. She's like, I wasn't predicting that, but I'll take it. Good job. Well played, Apocalypse. Well played.
So basically, like, so Araco gets put back on Earth. All of the mutants who live on Araco are also on Earth. But Apocalypse stays with his wife and kids, and they're going back to like the demon realm kind of place. That's where they're going to go, and Apocalypse kind of gets a happily ever after in a way. Now, he's not gone by any means, but, he's going to go stay with them for a while. But now, the island of Krakoa and the island of Araco, they get to kind of be back together again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now Earth has a whole new race of mutants to contend with, and they are bloodthirsty because they have a whole culture based off of war, and they don't know how to live outside of that. But that's a problem saved for another day.
Yes. So much build up, but yes, all for another day. And then it still becomes a question at the end of what happened to Betsy? Where is she? Because clearly she must be out there somehow.
But still another thing for another day.
Yep. Another thing, and Brian still being like, Well, and that's also something that Saturnine has to deal with too. She's like, well, crap. I guess Captain Britain, actually is Betsy. Darn it. My plan failed. And she can't change that.
Nope. Not even with her power.
Too bad, lady. Too bad, crazy lady.
Yeah, right? Get over it.
Yeah. I'm like, Betsy will come back, and Brian's going to be like, peace out now. I'm going to go be with my actual wife and child, not with you, Saturnine.
Poor Brian. To put up with so much crap.
Oh my gosh. I think, but then he's also, because his role now, he's like serving his brother, because he's like kind of becoming the protector. And I'm like, oh boy, that's a whole handful. Brian is just going from one unique person to the next to be with. So,
oh yeah.
Help.
Yeah. He's doing something completely new.
So this, kind of very chaotic. Lots of very interesting things happen in this whole Ten of Swords. It's a strange time.
It is a strange time, but like the art for this event though is so good. Like every single issue is just, it makes me happy.
They are very addictive though, because you want to know like what craziness is going to happen next. Like what is happening? Like how does this end type thing? It's a ride, yes. Yeah,
and that's we don't get another event for a little bit. But that is essentially the end of Dawn of X. The first major like saga in the Krakoan era has come to an end with the end of Ten of Swords. So now we get to relive, or I get to relive, and you get to read up on the next saga, which is the Reign of X.
Yes.
And there's some big stuff coming down the line for Reign of X. We're going to be heading into the first ever Hellfire Gala, which is, if you know what the Met Gala is, it's similar. It's similar,
this is
but
Emma's show.
But cool.
Yes.
Oh, this is the rest of everything is Emma's show. So
I'm looking forward to it. This is gonna.
Oh,
be
it's
a wild
amazing.
Time.
But we have the introduction of like some really excellent books. Some characters really get just an amazing time to shine. It's just a good. Reign of X is an excellent time. So listeners, we really hope that you have enjoyed our roundabout summary of Dawn of X. We hope that you stick around to listen for our next episode, which will be about the first half or so of the Reign of X. So going from the beginning, hopefully to the end of the first Hellfire Gala.
Yes. So this will do it for this episode, listeners. Yeah, like we said, we hope you enjoyed it. If you're enjoying our X-Men content, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on an episode. And as always, you can follow along on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at PodDemastered. Feel free to also send us an email at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com, because you can let us know your thoughts of what you think of the Krakoan era. Who are your favorite characters? What are your favorite moments? What parts are just so absolutely ridiculous? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. So that will do it for this week's episode, and so thanks so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to the next one.
See ya!